The rain was soft that evening, gentle enough to be heard against the glass, but not strong enough to drown out the silence between you and him. The apartment smelled faintly of paper, espresso, and the crisp scent of his cologne that clung to the furniture like a memory that refused to fade. Jungkook sat at the dining table, the same place where he graded essays, surrounded by open books and red pens scattered like casualties of his perfection. His tie was still knotted, his sleeves rolled to the elbow. Wayne stopped as he flipped another page. You stood by the kitchen counter, watching the steam rise from the cup of tea you had made for him 20 minutes ago, the same one that had gone cold untouched. You used to think silence was comfortable. That with him quite mean peace, but lately silence felt like punishment. You have been at this for hours, you haven't eaten. Jungkook didn't lift his eyes, his voice came low, measured the kind that never broke tone, no matter what emotion hid beneath. I told you not to wait for me, you don't have to. You forced a small smile, though it never reached your eyes. I'm not reading, I just thought, don't think too much. That was how it always went, him drawing walls with words so neatly it almost sounded polite. You never knew whether to be angry or impressed by how effortlessly he made you feel small without ever raising his voice. The world knew him as Professor Joan, the unshakable, brilliant mind of the English department. Students feared him, admired him, dreamed of his praise. But you were the one who picked up his scattered notes at 2 a.m., ironed his shirts before conferences, and tried not to read the warmth in his voice when he said, "You did well today, Mrs. Jones." Except no one knew you were Mrs. Jones. To the world, you were just another graduate student, invisible in the crowd, insignificant in his classroom. Because that was the rule, no one must know. The marriage had been quite a single signature, no witnesses, no flaws. It wasn't romantic, it was logical. Your father owed him a debt, a scandal that could have destroyed your family's name. Jungkook offered to fix it under one condition, marriage. You agreed half out of desperation, half out of foolish admiration for the man who carried himself like a secret you wanted to solve. Now, months later, you were not sure if you had saved your family or sold your heart to a man who didn't know how to love. He looked up suddenly, catching your gaze. For a second, something flickered in his eyes, something soft, something almost human. You are still awake. Couldn't sleep. You should try. It's hard to when the person beside you doesn't even notice you're here. That made him pause. His pen stopped mid-air, but he didn't look up again. He simply inhaled, slow and silent, like a man refusing to argue. You waited for a reply that never came. He didn't call you by your name, didn't touch your hand, didn't offer comfort. Instead, he turned another page, and that sound, that crisp turning of paper, became the loudest heartbreak in the room. Still, there were moments rare, fragile, ones that keep you from walking away. Like when he quietly left your umbrella by the door on rainy mornings, or when he adjusted your scarf before class without saying a word. His tenderness came in the form of small gestures, quite accidental and fleeting. But even those glimpses were fading, replaced by the cold professionalism of a man who could correct your grammar but never understand your silence. You often wondered if he ever regretted marrying you. Maybe he did. Maybe every time someone called him Professor Joan, it reminded him of the woman he had to hide. Do you ever think we made a mistake? He didn't answer. He simply gathered his papers, stacked them neatly, and walked past you. The faint brush of his sleeve against your arm was the only trace he left behind. When the door to the bedroom clicked shut, you whispered into the quiet words too soft for him to hear. You treat me like a lesson you wish you never taught. And the saddest part, you meant it. The lecture hall was packed rows of restless students, notebooks open, every eyes heavy with the kind of exhaustion that came with Jungkook's Monday morning lectures. He stood at the front, immaculate as ever, black dress shirt, sleeves rolled, voice smooth but sharp enough to cut through silence. John Jungkook, her husband, but here he was just Professor John, the man who looked through you like you were anyone else. He sat in the second row, pretending not to exist. Your fingers tightened around your pen as you listened to him dissect poetry with surgical precision. Every word was crisp, every gesture controlled, and yet something about him felt off today. His tone was harsher, eyes colder. Then it began the teasing. One of the girls at the back, Hannah, raised her hand with a smirk. Professor, shouldn't Miss Wine answer this one? She always seems to know what you are thinking. The class snickered. Few whispers followed teacher's favorite. Bet she's trying to impress him again. You swallowed hard, your chest tightening. You were not used to humiliation, but you were used to silence, to being misunderstood, even in your marriage. So you straightened up, forcing calmness into your tone. If participating in class bothers you that much, maybe try it yourself, Hannah. The class gasped, a few low chuckles rippling through the air. Jmook's gaze snapped to you, unreadable dark. It's fine. His voice was calm, too calm, the kind of calm that warned you to stop, but you couldn't. I was just answering, Professor. Isn't that what you encourage us to do? His jaw clenched, fingers tapping against the desk. The tension in the room thickened. Every student went still, sensing something sharp about to break. You always need attention, don't you, Miss Vine? The words sliced through the air, clean, cruel, deliberate. Laughter erupted, the kind that burns. You froze for a heartbeat. You forgot how to breathe. You could hear your pulse in your ears, feel your thought close. He didn't flinch, didn't take it back. His expression stayed blank, professional, as if he hadn't just torn you apart in front of 30 people. Attention, is that what you think I want from you? He met your gaze cold, got it, hiding the flicker of regret in his eyes. Sit down, Miss Vine. Of course, Professor. You forced a smile, the kind that didn't reach your eyes. Couldn't want to distract your class. You gathered your notebook, your voice steady but your hands trembled. The students stared, some pitying, some assumed. As you walked out with your head held high, he didn't call you back. Not as his student, not as his wife. That night the apartment was silent, the same suffocating silence you had learned to live with. Except tonight it felt heavier. He came home late, shirt half unbuttoned, the exhaustion in his eyes replaced by something else, guilt, maybe, or fear, wine. You didn't look up, you were folding your clothes neatly, placing them into a suitcase. Don't do this. Do what? Walk away were a stupid comment. You let out a sharp laugh, bitter and broken. A stupid comment? You humiliated me in front of your students, in front of people who already mocked me because of how you treat me. He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. I was angry, wine. I lost control. No, you lost respect for me, for us. He stepped closer, his voice low. You think I don't regret it? You think I don't hate myself for? Stop. You turned to him, eyes glassy. You call me an attention seeker, Jungkook, and you're right. He froze. I did want attention, yours. I wanted you to look at me once the way you look at your papers, your lectures, your students, but you never did. Silence, the kind that breaks everything it touches. He closed the suitcase and placed an envelope on the table, crisp, white, final. Jungkook stared at it, his knuckles tightening. What is this? Divorce papers. He didn't move, didn't blink. He just stood there, proud, cold, silent. While you walked past him with tears you refused to fill. At the door you paused, and for the record, I wasn't seeking attention today. You turned to meet his eyes soft but sharp, voice trembling. I was trying to tell you I'm pregnant. The word went still, his voice lost all color. But you didn't wait for his reaction. You simply walked away, the door clicking behind you like a final heartbeat. It had been 3 weeks since you left, 3 weeks of silence, colder than any lecture hall Jungkook had ever stood in. His apartment, once painfully organized, now looked as tired as if had stacks of ungraded essays covered the dining table. His usually iron shirts hung wrinkled, untouched. The coffee he brewed every morning went stale before he ever drank it. He had told himself he was fine, that he was focused, that reps didn't gnaw at him like hunger. But then he had walked into class, opened his mouth to speak, and his voice would falter. Lecture hall, Chunguk stood before his students, marker in hand, eyes on the whiteboard, except his thoughts were miles away. The students noticed, they whispered. Hannah, the same girl who once mocked you, raised her hand. Professor, are you okay? You have been different lately. He turned slowly, gaze sharp enough to cut. I wasn't aware my mental state was part of your syllabus, Miss Hannah. The class went dead silent. He threw the marker down, the sound echoing, dismissed. Students hurried out, murmuring, and once the room was empty, Chung sat on the desk, pressing his fingers against his temples. The silence mocked him, the same silence he had once forced it on you. Now it was all he had left. That night, he found himself standing outside your apartment. The hallway was dimly lit, the number on your door glowing faintly under the yellow light. He didn't knock, he couldn't. Instead, he leaned against the wall, eyes fixed on the door as if waiting for it to open by itself. He thought about the way you used to smile when you had handed him his morning coffee, shy, sleepy, still in your oversized sweater. He remembered the way your voice trembled when you would say his name softly. Cook, no one had ever said it the way you did like it. Was both a plea and a promise. He heard footsteps inside, you were there. For a second, his chest tightened, part of him wanted to knock, to beg, to fall apart right there. But then he remembered the last words you said. I was trying to tell you I'm pregnant. He exhaled shakily, stepping back. His pride, that same cruel, heavy armor, wouldn't let him knock. He walked away before he could open the door. She did open it seconds later, hand trembling on the knob, but all that was left was the echo of his retreating footsteps. 2 months later, you had moved on, not healed, but learning to live without him. You had transferred universities, started finishing the research paper he once encouraged you to write. You worked quietly in a small study, surrounded by notes and drafts, your hand resting protectively on your belly sometimes, the faintest remainder of what you carried. Your life was calm now, not happy but peaceful in a way you hadn't known before. When you wrote your resignation letter to the department, you added something else, not out of spite but closure. A small photograph you and Jungkook from your first months together before everything fell apart. You were smiling, rare and unguarded. Your laughing had tilted toward him, a moment that felt like sunlight. And on the back of that photograph, you wrote in your neat handwriting, you call me an attention seeker, but you never noticed that all I ever wanted was yours. 2 days later, Jungkook's office, he sat behind his desk, half buried in paperwork, when the department assistant handed him an envelope. From his mind, she said it's important. He nodded absently, not expecting his hands to shake when he opened it. The resignation letter was brief, professional, cold, but then the photograph slid out. His breath hissed. He turned it over, and the handwriting struck him like a blade. He read it once, twice, then again. The room spun quietly, his fingers pressed against the paper, tracing your smile as if it could bring you back. For the first time in months, he laughed, low, broken, bitter. Attention seeker, he murmured to himself, voice cracking, "You were never the problem, I was." He leaned back in his chair, eyes glistening under the dim office light. The laughter turned to silence, and the silence turned to grief. He stayed there long after the sun had set, surrounded by unguarded papers, unread letters, and the ghost of the woman who had once loved him enough to break herself trying. The rain had come again, soft as memory. Jungkook sat alone in his office, the clock's hands crawling past midnight. The photograph lay on his desk, edges already worn from the way his thumb traced it over and over. He should have gone home, but home didn't exist anymore. While stacking wallpaper, something slipped between two books, an envelope in your handwriting. The sight of it froze him. He opened it slowly. Inside was a thin journal. The first page held a single line. "If you ever find this, it means I finally stopped waiting for you to look up." He turned the pages, dates, half written thoughts, tiny sketches of lecture halls, and coffee cups. Paragraphs began to unfold like a confession. "You once said emotions make people weak. I believed you until loving you made me stronger. Every time you corrected my sentences, I wondered if you would ever correct your silence. When you called me an attention seeker, I realized you mistook love for noise." 'His hand trembled as he read on. One page was blotched with a tear mark, yours or his, he couldn't tell. "If you ever decide to listen instead of speak, you'll find me in the places we used to forget to notice. The library window at dusk, the smell of chalk on your cuffs, the song of rain you ever heard because you were too busy being perfect." He closed the diary, pressing it against his chest as if it could slow the ache in his ribs. Outside, the campus lights flickered against puddles. For the first time, he understood what it meant to be truly alone, not the quiet he once sought, but the silence that follows when someone stops calling your name. 2 years later, the annual literature conference was buzzing with noise. Jungkook stood among unfamiliar faces, invited not as the stoic professor but as the keynote speaker of the evening. His talk was titled "The Language of Silence." Afterward, as he signed programs, an attendant handed him a new academic journal to review. On the cover page was a familiar name, Wine Joan, the poetics of attention. He stared at it for a long moment. A quiet smile broke through his exhaustion, half pride, half heartbreak. Later, he found himself outside again. The rain had returned, gentle as before. He opened your old diary one last time and whispered, "You were right, I never noticed until you stopped trying to be seen." He looked up at the night sky, letting the rain wash across his face. For the first time in years, he didn't hide from it. And somewhere miles away, maybe beneath a different sky, you opened your window to the same rain, feeling it touch your skin like an old memory finally set free.